plow blade is coming down, not toward lifeless soil and stone, but toward a newborn child, naked, lying on cold sand. Its cry tears through the morning air, high, frantic, the sound of a helpless animal dragged from its den. One more heartbeat, just one. Steel will meet flesh. The man gripping the plow does not tremble. He screams nonsense, raw, broken sounds, his voice hoarse, white foam spilling from the corners of his mouth. His eyes roll back, the whites exposed beneath the gray light of dawn. An ox and a donkey, forced beneath the same wooden yoke, drag the heavy blade forward, groaning in pain, thrashing in panic, ripping the earth open. Salt is being scattered across the field. Handfuls of white crystals hit the damp soil, crackling as they dissolve. The air fills with a sharp, bitter stench. Not madness, but deliberate ruin. This is not the act of a truly insane man. This is a performance so desperate it borders on the grotesque. The man is no wandering lunatic. He is Odysseus, king of Ithaca, and he is trying to prove that he has gone mad, so he will not have to go to war. Behind him, Greek soldiers stand in rigid lines. Bronze armor clinks softly, cold, distant. No one speaks. No one breathes too loudly. The air is thick with sea salt, old sweat, and rusted iron. Among them stands one man who does not believe. Palamedes. He steps forward, slow, deliberate. His eyes are cold, clear, unmoved by screams or chaos. Palamedes looks at Odysseus. Then, he looks at the child, Odysseus' son. Without warning, he tears the baby from the nurse's arms. A scream erupts, shattered, primal. The child is thrown onto the plowed furrow, directly in front of the advancing blade. Time freezes. The waves still crash, but they sound distant. The wind still blows, but no one feels it. All that exists is the shrinking distance between iron and a child's skull. A test, brutal, simple. If Odysseus is truly mad, he will continue. If he is sane, he will stop. The blade moves closer. An inch, then Odysseus roars. Not the shriek of feigned madness, but the animal bellow of a creature cornered by death. He yanks the reins, his body twisting violently. The ox and donkey stumble. The plow veers, missing its mark by a breath. The child lives. The performance collapses. Rough hands surge forward. Armor screeches. Odysseus is slammed into the dirt. Salt cakes his hair, his face, burning inside fresh wounds already filling with blood. He does not resist. He only turns his head. Looks at his child, lifted from the ground, its cries still trapped in its tiny throat. That moment tells us everything we need to know about this man. Forget the white marble statues. Forget the speeches about honor and glory. This is not the story of a noble hero. This is the story of a man who fears war so deeply that he is willing to fake madness because he understands what war truly is. The time is around 1200 BCE. The world is dying. Today, historians call it by a clean name, the Bronze Age collapse. But to those who lived it, it had no name. Only a feeling, the feeling of the end. Cities that once burned with life go up in flames, from Greece to Gaza. The night sky glows red, as if torn open. Smoke, burning flesh, heated stone. Trade routes that fed civilizations are severed. Bronze becomes scarce. Food rots in storage. Invaders, later called the Sea Peoples, appear along the coasts like ghosts. No one knows where they come from, only that where they pass, there is ash and silence. Egypt staggers. The Hittite Empire collapses. The Mycenaean world devours itself. In this reality, Odysseus is not a king on a velvet throne. Archaeology on Ithaca tells a harsher story. Crude stone fortifications, sea winds screaming through broken walls, Small, red-painted warships ready to raid or be raided at any moment. His power does not come from the gods. It comes from striking first and holding ground. When ancient texts call him polytropos, a man of many turns, it is not praise. It means slippery, dangerous, willing to bend morality to survive. The Trojan War is not an epic of love or honor. It is a massive raid. A coalition of desperate warlords rushing to loot before their own societies collapse behind them. Odysseus knows this. He knows that leaving Ithaca now means leaving the door open to wolves. He knows his wife and child will become targets the moment his sails vanish over the horizon. Palamedes won the game in the plowed field, but he made a fatal mistake. He created an enemy who does not play by the rules. When Odysseus marches with the soldiers toward the beach, steps onto the ship bound for Troy, leaves the island where he tried to hide, he is not seeking glory. He boards like an animal forced into a dark corner. And in the scream of wind through the mast, in the stink of damp rope and pine resin, something else begins to sharpen. Not muscle, a mind, willing to do anything to keep breathing. To understand how this man could place a plow blade against his own child's life, in order to save that child, we must look into his blood. Odysseus wasn't born from a lineage of saints. His family tree looks less like a royal register and more like a criminal record. His grandfather was Autolycus, king of thieves, a natural liar, a fox so old and clever he could steal an entire herd and change the markings until even the owner could not recognize it. When Odysseus was born, Autolycus was asked to name the child. Instead of hope, he offered a sentence cold enough to chill the room. Because I have brought pain to many men, let him be called Odysseus. From Odysseus, not brave, but hated. More precisely, one who gives pain and receives pain. From the very first day, he was marked, not to be loved, but to endure, and to make the world endure with him. That mark was never just a name. It became the way Odysseus saw the world. While other children were taught that the gods reward justice, that strength and honor are always repaid, Odysseus learned something else. Quietly, cruelly. The world does not care who you are. It only cares whether you survive. That lesson was carved directly into his body one cold morning on the slopes of Mount Parnassus. Fog swallowed the mountain, thick enough to blind you after a few steps. The forest floor was wet. The air reeked of rot, decaying leaves, animal dung. Hunting dogs barked, sharp, frantic. Then suddenly, silence. The boar burst from the mist. Not a farm animal. This was a mass of muscle, hundreds of pounds of rage, bristles standing upright, tusks curved like sickles. It did not roar. It did not threaten. It charged. Odysseus didn't even have time to turn. The impact hit like lightning. White-hot pain tore through his thigh. Flesh ripped. Tendons stretched, then snapped. He slammed into the ground, mouth filling with mud and blood, his breath exploding into panicked gasps. The animal turned back. Odysseus's eyes widened. There was no time to pray. No god appeared through the fog, only instinct. He thrust the spear, with everything he had left. The tip drove deep. The boar screamed, a low, brutal sound, then collapsed. Silence, only ragged breathing, blood dripping into soil, pain spreading like fire. The wound never truly healed. The scar stayed with him for life, a twisted ridge of flesh that ached every time the weather turned cold. A reminder: you cannot fight nature head-on. You cannot negotiate with violence. You go around it, or you die. When the Trojan War began, Odysseus carried that lesson with him. While others polished shields, boasted of armor, spoke of glory that poets would someday sing. Odysseus watched. He listened to the wind striking Troy's walls. He smelled damp earth, unburied corpses. He saw a calculation. 10 years. The war was not a series of blazing charges as later ages imagined. For nearly 9 years, almost nothing changed. The Greeks were trapped between sea and stone. Their camps stank. Human waste, wet cloth, oxidized bronze. Flies swarmed open wounds. Every night, the groans of dysentery mixed with the sound of waves. Boredom rotted the spirit. Heroes became bitter, exhausted, pointlessly violent men. Odysseus was different. He did not see war as a stage. He saw it as a long trap. And the first one caught in it was Palamedes. Years passed. Palamedes rose in rank, respected, trusted. Every time Odysseus saw him, the image returned. A child lying before a plow blade, sharp as the smell of metal in the air. Odysseus did not forget. He waited. Then one night, under flickering torchlight, he wrote a letter. The handwriting trembled, deliberately clumsy, as if penned by a stranger. It bore the seal of Priam, king of Troy. Promises of betrayal, whispers of gold and power. Real gold was hidden in Palamedes' tent. When the letter was discovered, no long interrogation followed. The army was tired, suspicious, desperate for someone to blame. Stones flew, breaking bone sounds nothing like metal. It is dull, dry, final. Palamedes fell. Blood soaked into the sand. His mouth opened, but no defense came out. Odysseus watched. No frown, no reaction. He didn't need a sword, only a story placed correctly. From that moment on, the final boundary disappeared. The war dragged on. Then the unthinkable happened. Achilles died. The strongest, the fastest, the last symbol of pure strength. One arrow, one small weakness. The age of muscle collapsed. The Greek camp sank into a suffocating stillness. No one spoke loudly. Even laughter felt obscene. Then they argued. Who deserved Achilles' armor? Ajax, the Greater, stood firm. A wall of flesh, huge, brutal, the embodiment of old honor. Opposite him stood Odysseus, shorter, thinner, the scar on his thigh hidden beneath cloth. They did not fight. They debated. Inside a sealed tent, sweat and oil smoke clung to the air. Odysseus spoke. His voice was not loud, but each sentence hooked the mind. Strategy. The future. The truth that this war could not be won by strength alone. Ajax said nothing. He had no words, only past victories. The vote turned toward Odysseus. Ajax walked out in silence. That night, metal struck flesh. Not human flesh, but livestock. At dawn, Ajax awoke among carcasses, hands sticky with dried blood. Honor shattered. He drove the sword into his own chest. Another man fell. Odysseus remained. Now, nothing held him back. He began stripping war of its last rules. Prisoners were tortured. Night was used for throat cutting. There was no longer a line between warrior and civilian. Finally, he designed the plan. Not a weapon to break walls, but a lie big enough to swallow an entire city. The wooden horse was built. Fresh pine, sap still bleeding. Planks sealed tight, hollow inside. An offering carved to Athena. When the Trojans dragged it inside, its wheels screamed against stone, but no one heard the wood creak like a spine bending. Night fell. Wine flowed. Songs rose. Off-key, exhausted. Torches danced along the walls. When the door beneath the horse opened, there was no battle cry, only quick breaths, bare feet on stone. And then, the gates. The Greeks poured in. Troy did not fall in battle. It was slaughtered. 10 years of compressed madness burst loose. Greek soldiers became feral beasts. Screams echoed endlessly through the night. Men were cut down instantly. Women were chained into slavery. The smell of hot blood rose, thick, choking. Then came the unthinkable. Sacrilege. The temple of Zeus, sacred ground, filled with praying worshippers, became a slaughterhouse. People were hacked apart. Blood splashed across divine statues. Gods were torn from their pedestals. Even children were not spared from the fangs of these human beasts. Dawn rose over a dead city. And as smoke still climbed into the sky, the gods began to turn away. None of the victors understood. The worst was still ahead. A sour, acrid stench of burned wood and burned hair rode the sea wind and clung to the sails. No one spoke of victory. There were no songs, no cheers, no triumph, only the creaking of timber, the steady slap of waves against the hull, like the exhausted heartbeat of those who survived. They believed it was over. The gods did not. They were furious at the sacrilege committed in the temple, Athena above all, and Poseidon. The sky changed color with unnatural speed. Low clouds sank heavy, rolling over themselves like a black mass of flesh that breathed. The wind rose, first as cold blades slicing skin, then as a howl screaming through the rigging. The mast groaned. The ships lurched. This was not a storm. This was judgment. Rain swallowed the horizon. The fleet shattered into darkness. Lightning tore the sky apart. Briefly illuminating pale faces, hands gripping the rails until skin split and bled. Prayers erupted everywhere, entangled with vomiting, with screaming, with terror. When the storm passed, the world was no longer the same. Odysseus was lost. The sea stretched endlessly, gray, dead, without a trace of shore. The wind carried rot, mold, decaying seaweed. The road home was gone. They reached a land strangely quiet. No walls, no weapons, only low trees and pale yellow flowers swaying gently. The air was sweet, unnaturally sweet, like honey mixed with sap. Insects hummed softly, a steady lullaby. The scouts ate the fruit, and then they stopped. They smiled. Empty, drifting smiles. Eyes unfocused, as if staring through reality itself. They did not want the ships. They did not want home. They did not want to remember. Odysseus watched them. Men who had slaughtered for 10 years now lay sprawled on damp grass, murmuring nonsense. The scent of flowers masked old sweat, old suffering. He understood. This was forgetting, and he would not allow it. Ropes tightened. Men wept, begged, screamed as they were dragged back to the ships. Tears streamed down weathered faces as Odysseus bound them to the oars, ignoring the cries echoing across the sand. He was not a gentle leader. He was the man who forced them to live, even when they no longer wanted to. The voyage continued, and then, the cave. A black mouth split open the cliff face. Inside, cold, damp, the stench of fermented milk, animal fur, dry dung. Light from the entrance reached only a few steps before being devoured. Polyphemus lived there, a savage giant. When he appeared, the ground trembled with each step. A mountain of flesh, one bloodshot eye, breath reeking of wine and raw meat. He did not ask, he did not bargain. He seized 2 men. Bones snapped like dry branches. Blood splattered the stone. The sound of chewing, wet, slow, turned stomachs inside out. No weapon mattered here. No glory. Only intellect. Odysseus surrendered. He named himself Nobody. In that instant, escape took shape in his mind. He offered wine. Thick, heavy, burning the nose. Polyphemus drank, laughed stupidly, collapsed into drunken sleep. When the burning stake drove into his eye, the scream shook the mountain. Stone rained down. The cave convulsed. When other giants called out, asking who attacked him, Polyphemus roared with all his rage. "Nobody!" The word echoed in darkness, and the giants left. Language became a weapon. Intellect defeated strength. They escaped to the sea. A single wordplay saved every life. It should have ended there. But on the deck, sea wind whipping his face, Odysseus shouted. His voice carried across calm water. He spoke his true name. He boasted of blinding Polyphemus. He demanded glory. Polyphemus learned who had destroyed him. A mere man. Blind, furious, he screamed in agony. kneeling at the shore, his massive hands trembling as they touched seawater. He called to his father. Poseidon heard, and a curse was planted in the name of Odysseus. A colossal rock cut through the air and crashed behind the ship. Waves exploded, freezing, soaking, a warning. Odysseus survived because he was nobody. But his ego would slowly kill every man beneath him. The journey became an unending trial. They came to Circe, a witch wearing the skin of a goddess. Her house lay deep in the forest. Warm, golden light spilled from her windows. The scent of bread and cheese filled the air. Hungry soldiers entered. They ate, they drank. They touched gentleness long forgotten. Then came the screams. Not human, pigs. Flesh twisted, spines curved, hands became hooves. Humanity slid off them like an old coat. A spell had turned soldiers into swine. Odysseus entered last. He resisted with sheer will. Sword drawn, he forced Circe to swear she would harm no one further. But even he could not resist her temptation. He stayed. 1 year. A year in her bed. Time melting. Soft. Slow. Until his men dragged him up, reminding him. A home still waited. Before he left, Circe whispered. To go home. You must go down. Not east. Not west. Down. Into the underworld, where the sun does not reach. Seek the prophecy of Tiresias. The next voyage led them to the edge of the world. Gray land. No wind, no birds. Odysseus dug a trench. Black sheep blood soaked the soil. Thick, metallic. The darkness moved. Spirits gathered. Cold, hungry, crowding, moaning, desperate for blood to speak. Odysseus saw his mother, Anticlea, her face pale, mist-like. When he tried to embrace her, his arms passed through, 3 times. Nothing to hold. She died of longing for him. Guilt crushed his chest like stone. Then Achilles appeared. No radiance, no glory, only a weary shadow. When Odysseus praised his former greatness, Achilles smiled bitterly and said, Better to be a poor servant on earth than king of the dead. The words shattered the last illusion. Odysseus left the dead with different eyes, no longer chasing fame, only fleeing death. Because glory, medals, praise mean nothing before the grave. Odysseus had truly changed. And finally, Tiresias spoke. Every road ahead will take everything from you. And even when you reach home, enemies will still be waiting. Odysseus left the land of the dead, while the blood on his hands was still warm. The sea ahead did not open like a road, but like a set of teeth. The wind hissed low and steady, carrying the sharp scent of salt and an unease without a name. The rowers no longer looked at him. They avoided his eyes, as if meeting his gaze was enough to invite disaster. They had heard the prophecy, and they knew. The road home would take everything they had left. The singing began. Voices from the sirens, half woman, half bird. Not the erotic moans painted by later ages. These voices were high, clear, sharp, like thin blades sliding across skin. They told stories. They spoke names. They whispered Troy. They whispered burning nights, final screams, moments when men believed they were immortal. Odysseus trembled, not from fear, from desire. He ordered himself tied to the mast, ropes cinched tight, cutting into flesh until blood welled. As the singing drew closer, he screamed. He screamed until his throat tore raw. He cursed his crew. He begged them to release him, his face flushed red, eyes wild, a man unraveling. But the rowers heard nothing. Their ears were sealed with beeswax. They saw only their captain's body convulsing, twisting, and they rowed on. They saved him from his own story. But no one saved them from what came next. The Strait of Messina narrowed. Two paths. To the right, a roaring whirlpool, a massive funnel that devoured everything. To the left, a sheer black cliff, wet with rot, home to the monster Scylla. 6 heads, 6 mouths. Scylla always took 6 men from any ship that passed. Odysseus stood at the bow, his armor dulled under the gray sky. He knew. He calculated. He chose the left. And he told no one. When the monster struck, it was too fast. 6 men were torn from the deck. Their screams ripped through the wind, calling his name. Hands clawed at empty air. Blood dripped into the sea like black droplets. Odysseus did not turn back. He kept the ship straight. Homer would later say this was the most horrific sight Odysseus ever witnessed. Not because he couldn't save them, but because he chose not to. From that moment, something invisible snapped. Trust. The journey continued. When they were stranded on the island of the sun, God, wind howling day and night, supplies gone, stomachs twisting in pain. The men looked at Odysseus differently, no longer as followers, but as men who understood they were numbers in a calculation. Odysseus left the camp, to pray, or perhaps to avoid. While he slept, his starving men slaughtered the sacred cattle for food. And when they sailed again, Zeus was enraged. Lightning split the blue sky open, white light. The ship exploded. Wood flew upward and fell like rain. Screams were swallowed by water. One by one, men vanished beneath the Black Sea. Only Odysseus remained. He drifted, clinging to a plank, body numb, lips purple. The ocean stretched endlessly. There were no sailors left but him. At last, he washed ashore on Ogygia, home of the goddess Calypso. 7 years. 7 years passed like a sentence without bars. Calypso loved him. She gave him food, warm beds, and the promise of immortality. But every evening, Odysseus sat on the rocks, staring at the horizon, silent tears falling into the sand. No sword, no authority, no role, only a man who wanted to go home. When he reached Ithaca, the fog was so thick the path disappeared. The earth smelled of damp moss and animal waste. He did not recognize his homeland. The palace was occupied. 108 suitors devoured his cattle, drank his wine, slept with his servants. A coup. Slow, patient, daily. If Odysseus returned as king, he would die. So he vanished. Once again, he became nobody. A beggar's shape, hunched back, filthy skin, rags hanging loose, the stench filling the hall. No one saw a threat. Outside the gate, lying in dung, Argos waited. The old dog opened his eyes. His tail struck the ground softly. He knew. Odysseus felt his throat tighten, but he turned away. If he stopped, he would die. Argos breathed his last. Inside the hall, the suitors mocked him. They threw stools. They cursed. Odysseus bowed his head and memorized every position, every weapon. When Penelope announced the bow trial, the air tightened. Strong men sweated, growled, helpless before real war. Odysseus took the bow. He pulled. The string sang, a sound that cut the air like a sentence being passed. The arrow pierced 12 axe heads. Then, blood. Doors were locked. No bargaining, no ransom, only screams, bones breaking, metal entering flesh. The hall became a slaughterhouse. When it was over, the stone floor slick with blood. Odysseus stood at the center, gasping, hands trembling. He was home. But there was no triumph, only a heavy silence, like ash settling over everything. The war did not end at Troy. It followed him to his own doorway. And Odysseus, the man of many turns, finally understood a simple, brutal truth. You can use intelligence to survive the apocalypse, but there is no path out of it without blood on your hands.